Welcome to HD Book Review. Today, we're diving into one of the most challenging and rewarding books ever written, Ulysses by James Joyce. Don't worry, we'll make it make sense.
Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're tackling, well, a big one. James Joyce's Ulysses.
Ah, yes. The literary Everest, as some call it.
Definitely has that reputation, doesn't it? You hear words like dense, bewildering, monumental.
Well, true, in a way, but also incredibly celebrated. It often tops those greatest novels lists for a reason.
It really does. And for this deep dive, we're drawing on a pretty comprehensive review of the novel.
Right, try to get under the skin of this modernist masterpiece and, figure out what makes it tick.
So our mission today, really, is to unpack why Ulysses, which, it's still amazing to me, covers just one single day, June 16th, 1904, in Dublin, why it's seen as such a huge deal.
Exactly. It's more than just a story. It's this incredibly innovative, experimental piece of work. It fundamentally shifted what fiction could do, and honestly, it still feels relevant.
Yeah, and we want to explore why, even though it's famously difficult, it's also seen as profoundly rewarding.
We do. I mean, Ulysses is pure modernism, isn't it? That literary movement that just sort of broke away from traditional storytelling.
Right.
Focusing more on the internal.
Yeah, exactly. Prioritizing that internal experience, using fragmented narratives, and just diving deep, sometimes really unfiltered, into the human mind.
So we'll guide you through the core of it, the structure, which is unique, the main themes, its cultural impact, hopefully, without getting totally bogged down.
We'll try. We'll look at how it connects to Homer's Odyssey, which is fascinating in itself, and introduce you properly to the key players, Leopold Bloom, Stephen Dedalus, Molly Bloom, their inner lives, their thoughts and feelings. That's where the real epic journey happens.
So this deep dive should give you a kind of shortcut, maybe, to understanding why it's considered such a cornerstone, even if you've never actually managed to read it cover to cover.
Which is fair enough.
Absolutely. It's a commitment.
Okay, so let's jump in. Published 1922, Joyce's massive undertaking. Like we said, the whole thing condenses into June 16th, 1904, Dublin.
Bloomsday,
yeah. And this parallel structure with Homer's Odyssey. But the heroes here are, well, they're just ordinary people, aren't they?
Very much so. And that's part of the genius, taking this epic framework and grounding it so completely in the everyday lives, the mundane thoughts even, of these Dubliners.
How does he actually do that? I mean, technically speaking.
Well, it's through a whole arsenal of techniques.
Yeah.
That intricate stream of consciousness narration is key. Astonishing wordplay, puns, linguistic games everywhere, and radical shifts in style. Really radical. Chapter to chapter, it can feel like a completely different book.
So it's not just telling a story, it's constantly playing with how stories are told.
Exactly. It pulls you right into the characters' minds, their immediate sensations, their memories. And in a bigger sense, you get this incredibly detailed snapshot of Dublin, of Ireland, at that specific moment in time.
Okay, so the characters on this one day, June 16th, Bloomsday. We've got Leopold Bloom. He's an advertising canvasser.
That's right. Often seen as the sort of modern Odysseus figure. Humble, kind of an outsider.
And Stephen Dedalus. Young intellectual, a bit broody. Joyce's alter ego, people say. The Telemachus figure.
That's the common reading, yeah. He's grappling with art, faith, Ireland, big stuff.
And then Molly Bloom, Leopold's wife, who famously gets the last word, right? The incredible final chapter.
Oh, absolutely. Her soliloquy is, well, it's iconic. Unpunctuated, flowing thought.
So the narrative arc roughly follows Stephen in the morning, Bloom wandering Dublin all day, encountering people, having experiences.
All sorts of encounters, big and small.
And then it sort of culminates in Bloom returning home, the symbolic homecoming, and then Molly's thoughts.
Pretty much. But, like our source review really emphasizes, the plot itself, the sequence of events, isn't really the main point. It's the how. The style, the language, the structure, that's what was so revolutionary.
You mentioned those radical shifts in style. Can you give an example? Just how different are we talking?
Oh, dramatically different. I mean, you could have one chapter written like a newspaper archive. Seriously. Complete with headlines, different journalistic styles, even little ads.
Wow, okay.
Then maybe the next chapter is written like a play script. Dialogue, stage directions, the whole thing.
Like a totally different genre.
Totally. Or another section might mimic, say, the development of the English language itself, starting with Anglo-Saxon prose and evolving stylistically through centuries. Or one chapter parodies sentimental romance novels. Another uses a question-and-answer format like a religious catechism.
So it's constantly throwing you off balance, making you adjust how you read.
It really is. It's not just showing off. It's part of the meaning. It forces you to think about how form shapes content.
And weaving through all this is that stream of consciousness technique, getting those raw, unfiltered thoughts.
Exactly. It tries to capture the actual flow of the mind associations, memories popping up, sensory details, half-formed thoughts, anxieties, desires, all tumbling together.
Sounds incredibly immersive, but also maybe really confusing.
It can be, definitely. The source material acknowledges it's often bewildering, especially at first. There's not much filtering. But that's also what makes it feel so real, so human. You get this raw, uncensored access.
You really feel like you're in their heads.
You do. It makes the characters, Bloom and Stephen particularly, feel incredibly present and complex.
So these techniques, this focus on the internal, it allows Joyce to explore themes in a really unique way. Let's talk about some of those. The ordinary as epic seems huge.
Absolutely central. Joyce takes the small details of Bloom's day, making breakfast, feeding the cat, going to a funeral, visiting the pub, even using the outhouse, and imbues them with this mythic weight.
Using the Odyssey parallels?
Right. But also just by paying such intense attention to the inner life accompanying these mundane actions. He shows how our private thoughts, our small struggles and joys, have their own kind of epic quality.
It makes you see the potential for depth in everyday moments.
It really does. It suggests that heroism or significance isn't just about grand deeds. It's also in endurance, empathy, reflection, just getting through the day with some humanity intact.
And connected to that, there's identity and alienation, right?
Yeah.
Especially Bloom.
Yes. Bloom being Jewish in largely Catholic nationalistic Dublin. He constantly feels like an outsider. There are moments of anti-Semitism, casual prejudice. He's navigating this sense of otherness throughout his journey.
And Stephen. His alienation is maybe more intellectual, artistic.
Sort of. He's wrestling with his relationship to Ireland, to the church he's left behind, to his family, and fundamentally to his calling as an artist. He feels isolated by his own intellect sometimes. So yeah, the novel really digs into who am I and where do I fit?
Then there's time and memory. The whole book is one day, but it feels much bigger.
Because it is bigger, internally. The present moment for Bloom or Stephen is constantly flooded with memories, echoes of the past, anxieties about the future. Past and present aren't separate. They're layered, intertwined.
Like how our minds actually work.
Exactly. Every step Bloom takes through Dublin seems to trigger associations, personal and historical. Time feels fluid, subjective.
And what about language itself? You mentioned the wordplay, the shifting styles. Is Joyce saying something about language and reality?
Oh, definitely. He seems fascinated by how language doesn't just describe our world. It actively shapes it. Our perception of reality is filtered through the words we use, the stories we tell ourselves, even our internal chatter.
So reality isn't presented as this fixed, objective thing.
Not at all. It's shown as subjective, slippery, constantly being constructed and reconstructed through language and individual consciousness. Different chapters with their different styles almost offer different versions of reality.
Let's revisit the characters briefly with these themes in mind. Bloom.
Bloom comes across as fundamentally decent, doesn't he? Reflective, curious, quite empathetic, but also carrying this private grief, the death of his infant son, and the knowledge of his wife's infidelity. His kindness often bumps up against the harshness or indifference of the city.
And Stephen Dedalus.
Intense, highly intelligent, but also maybe a bit arrogant, lost in his own philosophical and aesthetic theories. He's searching for meaning, for his artistic voice, struggling with guilt and identity.
And Molly Bloom confined mostly to her bed for her part, but her mind ranges everywhere in that final chapter.
Absolutely. It's this incredible torrent of thoughts, memories, desires, frustrations, judgments, sensual experiences.
Yeah.
Ending with that famous affirmation, yes, I said, yes, I will. Yes. It's a powerful portrayal of female consciousness and sensuality that was, well, groundbreaking for 1922.
Definitely broke some boundaries there.
Artistically and thematically, yes.
Okay, we have to address the challenges. Because let's be honest, they're significant. You mentioned the dense language.
It is, packed with puns, allusions, classical, historical, local Dublin references, foreign phrases, newly coined words. And those shifting styles we talked about can be really disorienting if you're expecting a consistent narrative voice.
Yeah, I've heard people say they just hit a wall.
It happens. And the logic isn't always linear, right? Thoughts, memories, sometimes hallucinations, especially in the Circe episode, which is written like a phantasmagoric play. They all blend with real events without clear markers.
Joyce doesn't hold your hand.
Not really, no. You, the reader, have to do a lot of the work. Connecting the dots, figuring out the references, navigating the stylistic shifts. It demands active participation.
But the sources we looked at seem to agree. It rewards the effort.
Overwhelmingly so. It's often described as a book that reveals more with each reading. Layers upon layers. What seems confusing or random at first starts to cohere, revealing intricate patterns and deeper meanings. Patience is key.
And symbolism is everywhere, too, isn't it? Those Odyssey parallels are just the start.
Right. Each of the 18 episodes loosely corresponds to an episode in Homer. But often, as you hinted earlier, it's ironic. A heroic moment from the Odyssey might parallel a very unheroic, even comical or vulgar moment in Bloomsday.
So it's using the epic structure to comment on modern life.
Exactly. It questions what heroism even means in the 20th century. Beyond Homer, there are tons of other allusions, biblical, Irish history, literature, philosophy. Stephen's sections are particularly dense with this.
And psychology. You mentioned Freud earlier.
Yes. Freudian ideas about dreams, the unconscious repressed desires, sexuality, they definitely inform parts of the novel. The Circe episode, set in the brothel district, is a prime example, externalizing characters' subconscious thoughts and fears. And Molly's Penelope monologue is a deep dive into female psychology and sexuality. Joyce was tapping into these emerging psychological theories.
It's quite amazing how much he packed in. Now, The Legacy, it's kind of wild to think this book, now considered the classic, was actually banned.
It was. Banned for obscenity in the U.S. and the U.K. shortly after publication, mainly because of its frankness about bodily functions and sex, especially Molly's monologue again. That seemed to really shock people.
From banned book to arguably the most influential novel of the 20th century, that's quite a journey.
It really is. It's now seen as a cornerstone of modernism, influencing generations of writers. And its cultural impact is tangible. Bloomsday, June 16th, being celebrated worldwide every year.
People dressing up, retracing Bloom's steps in Dublin.
Exactly. It's this living tribute to the book and its enduring power. A global literary holiday, basically.
So, summing up, Ulysses. Definitely not light reading.
Not by a long shot.
But a profound experience. I like that description we found. A mirror of the mind, a symphony of language, and an ode to the beauty of the ordinary.
That captures it well. It's a book to be savored, explored, maybe wrestled with, not just rushed through to get to the end.
You really have to experience it.
Right. And ultimately, Joyce challenges us, doesn't he?
Yeah.
Challenges us to perceive the world differently, to notice the details, the flow of thought, the layers of time in our own lives.
How he elevates the mundane, showing reality as subjective, filtered through our own minds and the language we use.
It makes you more attentive, I think, more aware of the richness and complexity beneath the surface of the everyday.
Which brings us to a final thought, something for you to take away and consider. Ulysses makes us pay such close attention to thought, to form, to time. So here's the question. If your own everyday thoughts, observations, and mental wanderings were captured meticulously for just one single day, like Joyce did for Bloom, what might that reveal?
Yeah. What hidden depths, what private struggles, maybe what unexpected poetry might be found in your own ordinary epic.
If this helped make sense of Ulysses, imagine what we'll break down next. Hit subscribe, join HD Book Review, and let's keep decoding the greatest books ever written.